Welcome to episode 4 of UFOcast does Captain Scarlet. Now this time we're looking at point 783. Now this is the first time that the different orders really come into play because on the DVDs, which I used to have before the Blu-ray, this is episode 13, so quite a way into the series. On the VHS order that I referred to before, this is episode 11. So again, sort of about a third of the way into the series. But in terms of the Blu-ray and the production order and the ITC order, well, ITC has it at 5, but and puts Manhunt 4th. But generally we're talking 4th. And this does feel like that's where it fits best in the series. We do have some developments from previous episodes. We will do the usual things that we're looking for in every episode at the end, but let's get on with the review. So this episode contains what I'm going to call an example of deadly architecture in Anderson Productions, with the tunnel that goes through the mountains. I wonder whether such things actually exist. I mean, I suppose it kind of makes sense having a tunnel through a mountain that's narrow because it's easier to make, and therefore maybe you do have to have one-way tunnels through mountains. If you live in a mountainous region and have a one-way tunnel that's guarded by lights, do let me know. You'd think at least having a barrier that comes down when it's not your turn. Anyway, this is another example. Car View from episode 1, I feel, was also a piece of Anderson architecture that was designed to kill you. And then we have the question of, is Pete a Mysteron? Pete is introduced early on with, one assumes, his relief driver, driving his tanker, and he doesn't stop, and boom, we have the explosion in the middle of the tunnel. But we don't see him become a Mysteron. He doesn't say anything. Did we just assume that the episode's runtime was full and they couldn't have a Pete being Mysteronized thing? Has he been looked at by Captain Black and been taken over? I don't know. I'm gonna say he is a Mysteron agent. And then we have the return of Captain Scarlet's sixth sense in this episode, which is interesting. It allows him to detect that the Major is a bomb and pull down the glass partitions in time. And then it's interesting, at the end of the episode, Colonel Storm is like, where's your sixth sense now? Which is interesting because the conversation about Captain Scarlet's sixth sense is solely Captain Blue and the target are present. So the Mysterons clearly know that Captain Scarlet has an ability to detect them, which is interesting. How do they know this? Is he still somehow connected? Well, he is somehow still connected to the world of the Mysterons, even though he is good again, which is an interesting development. One thing that I don't think I ever really grasped when I was a kid, and it now makes total sense watching as an adult, the bing bong, bing bong 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 bing in the middle of the episode was to take them into a commercial break. But because these episodes were all repeated on the BBC, I never watched them with commercials. And this one has a proper cliffhanger going into the commercial break. Why does the Colonel greet them, pointing a gun at them? And this does develop, and Captain Blue does specifically say at the end that this is the war of nerves. This is the game that the Mysterons are playing, because he could just shoot him. Because the Mysterons don't care whether Colonel Storm lives or not. He's an agent that they've taken over for their purposes, and he could just shoot him. But they've decided instead to go for this elaborate, fear-inducing plot of, let's have the tank blow up Colonel Storm, and Colonel Storm will be as close to his target as possible in order to accomplish that. I guess it's interesting that in this order, we're 4 episodes in, and their targets have been people 3 out of 4 times, which is interesting because my memory of the series is that there's plenty of physical targets that are later on. But in this episode, it's very much another person that they are specifically trying to kill. And for some reason, Captain Blue knows that once the Mysterons have failed to kill their target, they won't go after him again, which was something I speculated about earlier, but it's interesting to have that confirmed here. Captain Scarlet's powers are a secret, but also alludable to this fact that nobody knows he's indestructible outside the spectrum. It's a classified thing, and they will go to lengths to protect that secret, even if it means annoying other people or making people think that they're irresponsible. In this case, Captain Blue. How could you let him die? Because that's what they think is going to happen to him. But it's interesting that they feel they need to keep that secret. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the world isn't ready for an indestructible man. And on that note, to wrap up the review, what kind of world has the Unitron been designed for? It specifically referenced the idea that this is for mechanized warfare. This is robot versus robot. There's not going to be any people involved. This tank hasn't been designed for the world in which the Mysterons are invading. This is just a matter of Earth combat. What is the world of 2068 like that we need these weapons? It's just an interesting question. And now it's time for this week's Spectrum Agent Report from Steve Hatcher of the Hoovers.
Well, apparently it's the ultimate in tanks. Fast, deadly and virtually unstoppable. Well, okay, if you say so. To me, the Unitron, silly name, looks no more deadly than the Action Man tank out of the Doctor Who story Robot. But let's accept it for now. Its main deadly attribute seems to be that it's unmanned and can be either remote controlled or pre-programmed, what we might today call a drone. In any case, the Mysterons seem to have another plan to carry out their threat to destroy the Supreme Commander of Earth forces. Mysteronized two of his colleagues, Major Brooks and Colonel Storm, by causing a crash in a tunnel. Brooks is programmed to explode when the Commander, accompanied by Captain Scarlet and Blue, arrives at the Supreme headquarters along very slow-moving walkways. And only Scarlet's sixth sense and quick action saves the day. So it's Plan B from outer space for the Mysterons. Scarlet and Blue escort the Commander to Point 783, a base in the Sahara Desert, to watch the field trials of the aforementioned deadly Unitron, silly name, tank, where they are greeted by Colonel Storm, who pulls a gun on them. It's not loaded, though. He's just having a laugh, being a right pillock, in fact. Perhaps he's concerned that someone might point out his remarkable similarity to the actor Robert Mitchum, and take the mick, but everyone's too polite to mention it. The tests start, and to no viewer's surprise, the Unitron starts to attack the command post. It's deadly and unstoppable, remember. Scarlet goes to buy an SPV from a desert trading post, they sell anything and everything, and rescues the Commander and Storm. But what's this? The Unitron changes course and begins to pursue the pursuit vehicle. Clearly, Mysteronized Colonel Storm has pre-programmed it to home in and destroy him. In the SPV, Storm, pulls a loaded gun and shoots Scarlet, but our hero manages to activate the SPV ejector seats, and he and the Commander are saved, leaving Storm to die and the SPV and the Unitron to be destroyed as both run off a cliff. But hang on, wasn't it unstoppable a moment ago? Well, anyway. The Supreme Commander is safe, but pretty cross, as none of the Spectrum people seem at all concerned about the apparently mortally wounded Captain Scarlet. Even though he is the biggest of bosses of the military, no one has told him about the captain. Perhaps they don't entirely trust him. Point 783 is a pretty standard Scarlet episode with a largely forgettable plot, which is too easily resolved. Presumably why it was felt necessary to pad it out by recycling the exploding Mysteron trope from the attack on the world president in the first episode. It's good fun, though, as all these episodes are, and for me, I never tire watching any of them.
And if you'd like to be a Spectrum agent in a future week, please head over to ufocast.co.uk/captain and sign up. What do we have? New Mysteron powers. Well, I wouldn't say this is a new Mysteron power, but it is confirmation of what was left unsaid in the first episode, in that Mysterons can be human bombs. It wasn't entirely clear that Captain Brown was a human bomb from the dialogue, but it's confirmed here. Mysteron still at large? Well, of course, Captain Black. He briefly appears in this to relay instructions to Colonel Storm, but doesn't take any further part in the episode. As I earlier speculated, he's probably behind the Mysteronization of Pete, who then goes on to cause the Mysteronization of the Major and the Colonel. Is it a win or a loss? Well, it's definitely a win for Spectrum, this one. They have protected their target, who would later go on to be Sam Loover in Joe 90, as well as appear in other episodes of Captain Scarlet. And look out for the Mysteron Puppet section on the website, ufocast.co.uk. Head over there to have a look and feel free to comment on this episode. And next week, I will be back with a look at Manhunt, Episode 5, Manhunt.